All right. What's up, everybody? My people in Manhattan, the Boogie Down Bronx, Queens, all the way out of Staten Island, my home borough, Brooklyn. Back out with another video. This is going to be an update into my best teams to never win it series. And this video is going to be on the 1984 Miami Dolphins, one of the greatest offenses in NFL history and one of the greatest teams to have never won the Super Bowl in NFL history, led by one of the greatest quarterbacks in NFL history, Dan Marino. See, number 13 right here, future Hall of Famer and member of the NFL's 100th anniversary all-time team. Dan Marino was drafted by the Dolphins in 1983. The Dolphins, the prior year in 1982, and made it to the Super Bowl led by the quarterback Don Strock and lost to the Redskins. Okay, in 1983, they were looking to upgrade, and they damn sure did with Dan Marino. Now, Dan Marino, having grown up in Pittsburgh, or I believe the Pittsburgh area, had wanted to go to the Pittsburgh Steelers. You know, a lot of those steel curtain guys were starting to retire, fade away. Joe Green retired after 81. Franco Harris, I believe, was traded away to the Seahawks. Lynn Swann retired after 82. Mel Blount retired after 83. Terry Bradshaw retired after 83. I believe John Stallworth was still there, but a lot of those steel curtain guys were starting to retire. Chuck Noble's still there, so they could have had a chance to rebuild with the great Dan Marino, but they passed on him for whatever reason. Hey, but I don't want to say one man's trash is another man's treasure, but they passed him on Dan Marino, but that placed him with the Miami Dolphins, coached by, of course, the legendary Don Shula, who had also drafted these young wide receiver studs, Mark Clayton and Mark Duper. You know, the Marx brothers, Mark Super Duper. Of course, he was going to the team with a future Hall of Famer on it, center Dwight Stevenson. And the defense was known by as the Killer Bees. They'd also had a young running back named David Overstreet, who was a talented player, but David Overstreet passed away prior to the 84 season in a car crash. They were playing the season with a heavy heart. And Dan Marino had one of the greatest seasons in the history of the NFL by any quarterback. This man had 48 passing touchdowns and 5,084 passing yards, which were at the time both records. Now, nowadays, 48 touchdowns, 5,084 yards may seem like nothing. But back then, in that extremely physical era of the NFL, where you can mug the wide receivers at the line of scrimmage, that was incredible. You can hit the quarterback. There was no roughing the passer penalties back then. So for Dan Marino to do that, that was incredible. That's like, this dude was like an alien. You know, he was like, this is the future of the quarterback position. This guy right here, Dan Marino. And as you can imagine, the Dolphins were dominant. They went 14-2 in the regular season, which under the number one seed in the AFC. In the first playoff game, they defeated the Seattle Seahawks, with, of course, future Hall of Fame wide receiver Steve Largent. You see future Hall of Famer, the late, great Kenny Easley, tackling I believe that's Mark Duper. In the AFC Championship game, they went up against Dan Marino's childhood favorite team, the Pittsburgh Steelers, and they defeated them in Miami to advance to Super Bowl 19, when they went up against one of the greatest NFL teams of all time, arguably the greatest team of all time, the 1984 San Francisco 49ers, who went 15-1. Joe Montana, all week long, people were talking about Dan Marino, 5,000 yards, 48 touchdowns, Dan Marino. Everybody just ignored Joe Montana, who had won a Super Bowl prior to this. You see, Joe Montana handed the ball off to Roger Craig, and congratulations to Roger Craig on being elected to the Pro Football Hall of Fame. Should have been there a long time ago. But Joe Montana and the 49ers showed why they were the best team in the NFL, and why Joe Montana was the best quarterback in the NFL, and arguably the greatest quarterback of all time. They dominated the Dolphins in the Super Bowl and ended up winning 38-16. The 49ers actually had the number one defense in the NFL in fewest points allowed. They held the highest scoring Miami Dolphins offense to just 16 points. Just 16 points. And, you know, the Dolphins, of course, lost the Super Bowl and haven't been back to the Super Bowl since. Dan Marino never got back. You know, a lot of people. Now, Dan Marino was in his second year in the league. He had a historic season. He was the MVP. A lot of people thought Marino would be back one day, which unfortunately never happened. You know, Dan Marino, you know, he never truly had a truly great wide receiver. I mean, Mark Clayton, Mark Duper were talented, but they weren't like great receivers like how Manning had Marvin Harrison or how Montana had Jerry Rice. You know, the defense, you know, the Killer Bees were good defense, and towards the end of his career, he had Zach Thomas and Jason Taylor, but by the end, it was too late. Marino was on his way out of the league. And Dan Marino, unfortunately, went down as one of the greatest players, and now arguably the greatest players to have never won the Super Bowl. He's probably the only quarterback who's in the top 10 NFL quarterbacks of all time list who doesn't have a Super Bowl ring, who doesn't have a championship. He's the only quarterback on the NFL has ever seen doesn't have a championship, and I know that stings. I know that pisses him off deep down. But, you know, the 84 Dolphins, he did have a legendary season. Dan Marino changed the NFL. He's your favorite quarterback's favorite quarterback. Even Joe Montana holds Dan Marino high esteem. Peyton Manning, all that. The way he threw the football was beautiful, pinpoint accurate. Like I said, he's really a quarterback's quarterback, Dan Marino is. Of course, a lot of his records would be broken. The 48 touchdown record was broken by Peyton Manning, I believe, in '03. Peyton threw 49 touchdowns. And then Brady broke it in '07 with 50 touchdowns. And then Peyton got the record back in 2013 with 55 touchdowns. Also that year, Peyton set the passing yards record, 5,477 passing yards, if I remember correctly. Those were records that weren't held by Dan Marino. He may never win a Super Bowl, but he definitely changed the NFL and you could say revolutionized the position. But guys, what do you think? Do you think the '84 Dolphins are the greatest team to never win a Super Bowl? Let me know. Do you think Dan Marino's the greatest quarterback or the greatest player to never win a Super Bowl ring? And do you have him in your top 10 quarterbacks of all time list? Me personally, I do. Okay, Dan Marino was extremely influential and a truly great quarterback. If he played today, if Dan Marino played today, oh my God. Now you can barely touch the quarterback or wide receivers. That man probably throw for 6,000 yards and 60 touchdowns. Probably. I don't know. Again, tell me what you guys think in the comment section down below. Don't forget to like, subscribe, how you can further go on YouTube. I'm going to see you.